Hi, Professor. This is Erin Cameron. The title of my project is Shaped by Society: How Culture and Community Molded My Personality. Ralph Linton believed our personality is shaped by the culture we grow up in. He said it's based on the goals and interests of the individual and is determined almost entirely by the culture in which the person was raised. Of the major cultural factors, religion, race, age, and gender, race has one of the biggest impacts on how we see ourselves in the world. Even though biological differences are small, growing up within a particular racial group shapes how we understand others and how little we may truly understand what it's like growing up in a different race. I grew up in a remote ranching community in Northern California where diversity was almost non existent. I still remember the first time I saw a black family in town. I thought the little girl was so beautiful with her dark skin and braided hair, and I desperately wanted braids like hers with pink bow clips. In my innocence, I grabbed my mother's hand and exclaimed a word that I overheard from adults, a racial slur. I didn't understand, and I had no idea it was an insult. At that moment became my first realization that my family held racist attitudes. When I later received a black doll for Christmas after begging for one, my family teased me for it, but I adored her. Looking back, I think I loved that doll because she represented my own feelings of being the black sheep in my family, someone who didn't quite fit in. I was a minority. Years later, when my family moved to San Francisco and I attended a predominantly black and Asian high school, my perspective expanded dramatically, and I saw for the first time that I had existed in a tiny white bread bubble. For the first time, I was surrounded by cultural richness and difference, and I loved it. Although only 8 white students graduated in my class, I felt more accepted and understood there than anywhere before. This shift in environment reshaped my worldview. My early isolation had shaped a narrow lens, but exposure to diversity opened my empathy, curiosity, and appreciation for cultural identity. This experience illustrates Linton's theory perfectly. Culture, including racial context, molds not only how we see others, but also how we come to understand ourselves. Age. Ralph Linton also recognized age as a major cultural influence on personality. Developmental psychology describes several clocks that shape our growth. The biological clock tracks physical aging. The psychological clock governs memory and cognition. The historical clock reflects the era we were born into, and the social clock sets cultural expectations for what we should achieve at certain ages. Now that I'm in my 50s, I can definitely feel the effects of time, both physically and mentally. I can also see a clear contrast between my generation and younger ones. I love my younger friends, but they often seem more guarded, anxious, and world weary than I was at their age, and that makes me sad. I've missed most of the traditional milestones: marriage, kids, house, pension, career success. But I've lived a full life. I've traveled widely, created some meaningful work, some very little really, and found, more importantly, a deep sense of peace that feels like its own kind of success. A peace that I think actually can only be achieved through age. Sex and gender. Sex refers to a person's biological body and genetic makeup, while gender reflects the cultural roles and behaviors society assigns to men and women. Jung described an inner balance of masculine and feminine energies as the anima and animus, and the gender shift hypothesis suggests these traits blend and soften more with age. And I agree. Freud also believed that human behavior is driven by two basic instincts: eros, the life instinct, and thanatos, the death instinct. According to Freud, the energy of eros, called libido, is not just sexual, It's the vital drive that fuels survival, creativity, and our emotional attachments to people and things that sustain life. I totally disagree. Personally, I can't think of a more dull topic. I've never found conversations about one's gender identity or sexuality especially interesting. They feel personal and private. I don't judge others, but I think society gives the topic far too much focus. I'm a woman who does plenty of boy things, but I also love skirts and pretty things. What matters most to me is giving and receiving love, being kind, and helping others. Gender and sex may shape parts of who we are, but they don't define us. They're simply aspects of where our attention and energy, our libido, are directed at any given time. Religion. Religion connects deeply to our values and the processes of self actualization. Religious traditions teach moral frameworks and provide a unifying philosophy of life. These values we absorb early on continue to shape our character and personality throughout life. According to Maslow's hierarchy and social investment theory, faith can help people reach higher levels of personal growth by giving purpose, structure, and community. I grew up in a family that rarely attended church. When they did, it was usually because I begged them to go, hoping it might somehow bring us closer together or fix what was broken at the home. As I've grown older, I've come to see how meaningful faith can be for families who truly live it. In my own church now, I'm witnessing something amazing, a wave of young people, millennials and Gen Z, filling the pews, searching for God and for deeper moral grounding. Many grew up without faith and have felt the emptiness and confusion that comes from a world losing touch with its spiritual roots. What draws them back isn't dogma, but the timeless call to love God and love one another, to be kind to those in need, to honor parents and elders, to build lasting families, and to live by the simple truth of the Golden Rule. It's beautiful to see so many young hearts rediscovering these values and the peace that comes with them. Values regarding education. Education plays a major role in shaping who we become. According to Marcia's identity status model, schooling helps form our identity through exploration and commitment. The values we learn through socialization, like what is normal, valued, and expected, influence our sense of direction and belonging. From the view of social investment theory, committing to education encourages maturity and personal growth. Schools and learning environments don't just teach academics, they also pass down cultural norms, ethics, and professional standards from one generation to the next. Behaviorist theory adds that learning is shaped by reinforcement. When effort and achievement are rewarded, motivation grows. Skinner's ideas still show up today in standardized learning systems, interactive lessons, and feedback-driven educational models. Though luckily we aren't shocked if we don't perform. My relationship with education has changed a lot over the years. When I was younger, I didn't see school as something that defined me. It was more focused on I was more focused on creativity, travel, and life experiences. But later, returning to college as an older adult has been one of the most rewarding choices I've made. I approach learning now with a real sense of purpose and curiosity. I'm investing in myself in a way I couldn't appreciate when I was younger. Education for me now is about becoming who I was always meant to be, with the credentials and training to back it up. Regarding work. Work plays a major role in shaping personality and stability. According to social investment theory, the roles and responsibilities we commit to through work help our traits mature and stabilize over time. In Marcia's identity status model, career exploration and commitment also shape identity, teaching us what our culture defines as normal, valued, and successful. From a behaviorist view, work reinforces behavior through rewards like praise, pay, or recognition, which keep us motivated, they say, or connected to our roles. Yet these same reinforcements can also trap us in identities built on external validation rather than our authentic purpose. And for me, work once became too tied to my sense of identity. It was a performance rather than an expression of my true self. Working in film production and advertising often felt unstable and at times encouraged immaturity and ego. I thought success meant creating things that others valued, but even after working on 7 documentaries and directing countless commercials, I realized how fleeting that kind of recognition really is. Looking back, I see that the real value of any work lies not in fame or output, but in how it serves others and contributes something meaningful to the world. Family reputation and the looking glass self. Our self image often forms through how we believe others, especially family, see and judge us. As the looking glass self theory suggests, we speculate how they may judge us and internalize a sense of self based on those perceptions. From a humanist perspective, children have an innate drive to self actualize and a deep need for positive regard. When parents offer unconditional love, it nurtures authenticity and growth. When approval is conditional or absent, it can create conditions of worth, leading the child to shape their identity around external expectations rather than their true self, which is likely what drew me to work in film production and to seek approval. According to narrative identity theory, family experiences become part of our personal story we construct to explain who we are and how we came to be. Narrative identity is the eternalized and evolving story of self, explaining how the person came to be and where life may be going. The artwork shown here is by my mother. My early family environment was chaotic, emotionally unsafe, marked by neglect, volatility, and self centered behavior from both parents. Neither cared much about social reputation in a conventional sense, but they were deeply invested in their own image. Growing up in that atmosphere, I often played the role of scapegoat, absorbing blame and criticism that shaped how I saw myself. Over time, I came to understand how these early experiences influenced my personality development. The lack of unconditional positive regard created deep patterns of self doubt, but it also gave me a strong drive to seek truth, compassion, and authenticity. Reframing my story through the lens of narrative identity has helped me find meaning in that pain and transform it into empathy for others who have faced similar wounds. Socioeconomic status of family of origin. Psychic determinism suggests that our early experiences, especially those tied to socioeconomic status, leave lasting imprints on personality and behavior. Growing up in either scarcity or abundance shapes how we perceive safety, opportunity, and self worth. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when basic physical or emotional needs aren't met, it becomes difficult to focus on higher levels of growth, such as creativity, purpose, and self actualization. Freud also believed that early in life we form deep attachments, what he called libido energy, to the people and objects that help us survive. These early bonds influence how we relate to security, success, and love throughout life. I grew up in a family where financial and emotional instability were constant. Money was unpredictable, and the stress around it often spilled into other parts of our lives. The instability taught me early on to be resourceful and independent, but it also created an undercurrent of anxiety about safety and survival. As I've gotten older, I've worked hard to build a sense of stability and self reliance that wasn't available to me growing up. Meeting my own basic needs and creating security for myself has been a major part of my personal growth journey. It's helped me move beyond mere survival into a place where I can focus on creativity, meaning, and service to others, the being needs that Maslow described. This concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.